Tips Analysis.
I hope you're feeling positive because this is the Introverted Positron, and welcome back to another episode of Tips Analysis. Hype is an interesting thing. It's something that can seem to sometimes help us to be more excited for a game and ultimately enjoy it at its release, and sometimes it seems like it's something that can destroy a game. But that's really the question is, does it really, destroy a game, does it really help a game? Is it better to have lower expectations when we come to waiting for a game, or should we be hyped? Should hype be something that we make normal for when we see a game coming? Well, let's get into it. So, when you think about hyped up games, I'm guessing some examples you probably think of are games like Mighty Number 9 or No Man's Sky, and those are pretty extreme examples, even Ukulele for some. But in those cases, they were games that people expected to be really good. No Man's Sky seemed to be a game that was going to be about space exploration and looking at different unique planets and interesting life forms, exploring and fighting creatures, something that had an epic story to it and interesting methods of exploration, building, interacting with the races. And Mighty Number 9 and Ukulele were kind of follow-ups to two beloved series, Mega Man and Banjo-Kazooie in a sense anyway. And people were excited for those games, and many were disappointed. I don't know about Ukulele personally. I know that some people really like Ukulele. Probably some people like Mighty Number 9 and No Man's Sky too. But either way, in any of those cases, you can kind of see that people had high expectations for what was coming out and were disappointed by the final result. Now, the question is would those games have been well received if the hype hadn't been there? And in those cases, I don't think they would have been. If the hype hadn't been there, I don't think they would have even been on the map. There wouldn't have been disappointment, but there wouldn't have been excitement. There wouldn't have been interest in these games because they would have been what they are, which are legitimately, in some cases anyway, again, Ukulele might be an exception, but legitimately badly made games. And then comes the question, in the case of No Man's Sky, we were also told things that didn't seem to really be true when it came to the game, and that's what a lot of people were angry about. But ultimately the question then is what about the disappointment? Does the hype really cause us to be disappointed, is kind of the question. And when I kind of think about this, I think about the way that we all handle it and the way that the internet reacts. But also the way that I try to handle it is that I don't get disappointed. I've been incredibly excited for games like Mario Color Splash, which is too bad. I was hoping for a better battle system out of it. I also have been excited for No Man's Sky, for Mighty Number 9, and yes, they were disappointments, but in the end, it didn't really affect me that much. Then again, I've also been very excited for games like Breath of the Wild, for Mario Odyssey, for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, all of which have more than met my expectations for what the game is. And in all of those cases, I've loved them. I've had more fun with them. But then, I don't represent everybody, and B, does that really mean that the hype helped me to enjoy those games more? Or is it the experience of being hyped for it that I'm really enjoying? And I think that's ultimately what it is. I think that I enjoy having that experience of being excited for a game, even when I'm met with something that is disappointing. And so then comes another question, which is, why then should I be hyped? Should it be an experience in that way? Should we in general really get excited for these games? Well, I think ultimately the answer is that yes and no, and I know that a lot of my discussions come to that conclusion, but it's because there's always more complicated pieces to what we see when it comes to these things. Because for instance, I think the hype can be something that can really make the experience looking forward to a game fun. It's cool to be looking forward to seeing new trailers, to seeing new information. And admittedly, in some cases for myself, I've had that be too much, in the sense that I've spoiled myself too much in the game. Breath of the Wild is one of those examples, where I wish I'd gone through the game a little bit more blind. And of course, then there's also the cases where there's no hype for a game whatsoever, at least not in the larger community, for games like Undertale that really just picked up when they came. Cuphead, I would say, is an example that people were pretty excited for that game before it came out. And yeah, just sometimes they can come out of nowhere, and sometimes maybe that's a better experience. I don't know. But ultimately, what's important in those things is that we have fun with it, right? That hype can be fun. I don't think that it can ruin a game, really, as long as we remain in check, and that's kind of the point that I'm coming to, is that I don't think that people really let hype ruin a game. I think what people let ruin the game is expectation, and I think those are two different things. Hype is being excited, It's seeing and being excited for what you're seeing, whereas having high expectations that are unreasonable, are taking those things and then expecting much more than what we're shown. And I think that's the big difference. I think that's the difference between what makes hype and what makes something that can really destroy the presence of a game when it's released. And that I can think of a few cases like that. For instance, although there's reasons for this, but Metroid Prime Federation Force had a lot of negative backlash of it because of the series it was from, and that it didn't represent what people wanted from that series, and their expectations from that series weren't met by the game, even though the game itself is a decent game. It's not a bad game, but people didn't like it because of the fact of what they were expecting from it. Not because of the hype, but because of the expectations, because there was no hype for the game. People didn't want it. But nonetheless, the expectations themselves are what hurt the game. And then there are also cases, even with Paper Mario, for instance, like, don't get me wrong, I don't like Sticker Star, but I think even in my own mind, it's a worse game than it actually is. And I think it's because I have expectations for what this series should be like. And admittedly, it's not a game that I'm going to like. It's not a style that I'm going to like, but it's not what I want from that series. And I'm not condemning that notion that we should be expecting certain things. But I think at the same time that that's the key to it. But then again, the question becomes, should we have low expectations? Do lower expectations make us want a game more, to experience a game as being better than perhaps what it is? And again, I would argue no, because when we lower our expectations, we lower our ability to experience the game at its full potential. We end up lowering them, and so when we come into the experience, we don't expect anything more than what we're going to get. It's weird because it seems like with the human mind, and I'm not getting into this too much because I'm not a psychology major, but when it comes to the human mind, it seems like we have the ability to set boundaries, but we don't have the ability to go past boundaries. So if we set boundaries that are too high, then we will ultimately will still experience the same level of satisfaction, just we'll have some dissatisfaction as well. Whereas if we lower our expectations below what we get, then it won't bypass those expectations. We're setting a barrier. It's like if you have a cup and you fill it too much, then you're still only going to have as much as the cup can hold. But if you have a bigger cup and you don't fill it all the way, then you still get the full drink, but you don't actually get a chance to use the full potential of the cup, and that can be disappointing sometimes. And that's a weird analogy, but it works. So in those cases, I think that's what we have to do. I think that when it comes to games, when it comes to hype, and it comes to expectations, I think all that we have to do is we just have to take in what we get. We don't lower our expectations from what we get, because then we don't allow ourselves to experience something in its full amount, full extent of how much we can actually enjoy it. But at the same time, we have to keep our expectations low enough that we can, even if the glass doesn't completely fill, at least we can still enjoy what's there. And I think that's kind of what we need to do, personally. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think it's an interesting experience when we talk about it. We have many games that we're all excited for now, like Metroid Prime 4, for some Project Octopath Traveler. I'm really looking forward to that. We have Pokemon for the Switch, we have games on PC, Monster Hunter World was one of them, although that released in the trailer is quite good. I'm trying to think of other games that... Oh, Kingdom Hearts 3 is a big one for this year. Very big one for this year. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be excited for those things. But the question becomes is, do we have expectations that are too low, expectations that are too high? And ultimately, I think that it's better to have expectations that are slightly too high. Although if they're too much, then we can ultimately destroy our experience. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps at the channel, and it's always appreciated. I'm going to leave some links here so you can go check out some other stuff on my channel, or you can always just search the channel. There's lots of stuff for people, playlists, and all that stuff. And so on that note, thank you again. Have a great day, and remember to keep positive.